Alright guys, look. You may not think of Brazil as a great place to live due to some issues like crime or poverty or healthcare or some ridiculous fourth thing, but I'm gonna put those issues to bed. People don't get it, right? Brazil is special because there is so much potential, not only here, but on the land around it. Latin America has everything you need to be the world's greatest power. And you're gonna see why everybody is gonna want to come to Brazil. Starting off, Brazil is in a war against some misguided people who think they would be better off not being under my benevolent rule. But fortunately, since I have more people with guns than they do, we should win these wars pretty easily. Also, we are pretty fortunate to have a monarch who supports the intelligentsia, since it will make it easier for us to pass laws that will help us liberalize. You can also see the new legitimacy system here, and we need to reform our government to be a lot more legitimate to be able to pass any laws. Religious schools is a very good first choice since it's pretty easy and we need people to be literate to modernize. Now they said they were working on UI improvements in the patch, but for some reason they thought it would be better for the game experience if there was a giant pop-up whenever any AI nation does a diplomatic action with you, because it is that important that I know that Chile is improving relations with me. The wars wrapped up pretty fast and Brazil looks really good when they're whole again. But I guess the new patch also changed how bold the AI is because Austria just walked in my capital and demanded me to become their protectorate. Of course I said no, and they just pretended it didn't happen. They were just looking out for me, I guess. But the only person I needed to look out for me was me. I was going to be the protector of South America. And of course, to protect somebody in this game, there is only one good way to do it. Venezuela understood I was looking out for them, as well as the Colombians later on. These nations are really important for later game. Also, to protect South America, we have to make sure the southern tip of the continent is safe from foreign colonization. And while there were some naysayers who say that we shouldn't be exploiting native people and taking their land, we just reply, actually, we're correct, and the bill becomes easier to pass. Now, it still took a while to pass the bill because some people were just not convinced by that argument, but still, the bill passed anyways. After I integrated both Venezuela and Colombia, I tried to show how liberal Brazil was becoming by allowing an abolitionist to speak and denounce slavery. But the bastard just ended up inspiring a slave revolt in Colombia, so I had to spend precious time to clean that mess up. But I get it though, slavery is so 18th century. And I needed to get with the times, you know, enlightenment and all that. So with the nobility weak enough, I pushed legislation to ban slavery. Now, understandably, nobility was not happy with that and started to push for a revolution. Response to the law to end slavery, the landowners only had one demand: change your voting laws now and only let us vote. And for some reason, that one just wasn't catching on too much, so later on, when the no slavery law was very close to passing, they begged me, please, just let us keep the slave trade, bro. We'll treat them better, please just don't get rid of it. But unfortunately for them, crying in the Capitol building did not persuade many people. Brazil has control over a lot of the resources in Latin America, but just not enough people to take advantage of it. So I needed to attract more people to come here. Now typically, people like to go to places where they aren't discriminated against, so I, with the stroke of a pen, banned racism in Brazil. It just really was that easy. I also wanted to make it easier to move to Brazil, but before I even got the law passed, the Irish were already coming in. Now, despite a lot of people being mad about no immigration controls, I still got the law through. And with the labor acquired, I needed the capital, so I got the laissez-faire law passed as well. Now, people from across the world could be coming to Brazil because this is a land of opportunity, and we don't discriminate here. It's just unfortunate that certain people feel apprehensive about coming here, but once I get a chance to talk to them, I'll negotiate and they can come to their senses. One thing Vicky manages to keep impressing me with, though, is this war system. This time, when I send my general to defeat a simple native uprising, which is very easy to deal with, he dies before the war finishes, so that whole army, 20,000 troops, just gets beamed back to Rio like it's Star Trek, and the natives just get to moonwalk over all my land in Argentina. Now, the great thing also is this update, they fixed the exploit to teleport your armies, but they did nothing to fix how your armies will just instantly teleport back to your headquarters. The front messes up, or in this case, your general dies. So the game will just randomly screw you over, and the devs just patched the one band-aid solution to this issue. So I just have to stare at me losing land until the second army arrives and finally ends the war. I wanted to get to work securing the other nations in South America, continuing with Ecuador, but here comes Buzzkill Austria trying to tell me I shouldn't do this, but I called their bluff. They didn't even send a single Austrian soldier over there, so I just rolled over the betrayed Ecuadorians. And an important thing though during this war was me finally getting the free trade law, since it's objectively the best trade law, and you'll see later why. Anyways, the Ecuadorians were going to be very happy under me. Hell, they didn't even have to swear loyalty to a king anymore since we became a republic. Things were only looking up for me, and I knew I could establish myself as a great power. I mean, look around at my competition. America can't even take the Southwest from Mexico because they fell into a civil war. And I don't even understand how the borders end up looking like this. And I look towards Europe and it can confirm Germany will never form since North Germany is also in the middle of a civil war. But that didn't mean people weren't going to try to stop me, since Russia intervened in my play to puppet Peru and even had the gall to send troops there. And unlike real life, their troops were good and they were kicking my ass. But it's still good to know that despite me being in a war with a great power, people still want to immigrate to Brazil, which just shows how great the country is. The French also came in to offer us $30,000 for the next 9 years to build the Panama Canal, making it so we would never go to debt during this war. The war was turning for us though, since the Russians had decided to abandon Peru, most likely due to my non-stop convoy raiding the Pacific, and the Peruvian army easily got smashed. As my army marched through Bolivia, the Peruvian government agreed to accept their place as my puppet. I needed to continue my process of liberalizing though, so I passed census suffrage to continue our commitment to freedom, which would attract more people to Brazil. This, however, did not make my subjects more likely to join me, since when I tried to annex them, Russia decided it was round 2 against me in Ecuador. And boy, did those Russians not play around. However, for reasons I don't understand, the Ecuadorians surrendered to me anyways. I guess they just wanted to troll me one last time before going out. Peru was even worse, because the Chinese decided they were gonna intervene. It didn't matter that we had superior tech, because when a bunch of Chinese pull up in every battle I fight, I can't push. I had to think of a way to break the stalemate, and then it came to me. They don't have the troops to stop a naval invasion. And that turned the entire war for me. Peru understood that the only future was with Brazil now. Intimidated by my successful annexation of Peru and Ecuador, the Argentinians knew that they couldn't fight me and joined peacefully. But I do find it pretty wild though that after Argentina, Paraguay was just a step too far for the world. Italy doesn't even have a way to get to Paraguay, but they are confident that they are going to win this war. And that war ends exactly how you expected it to. And then when I go for Chile, well, they just don't want to give me a break, because this time the UK joins to stop me. And best part of fighting in Chile is the 6 different front lines created because of the mountains and colonization. The game gets so much better when you have to manage 6 different front lines, because then you get to deal with stuff like generals teleporting, the front lines changing and breaking. But I still managed to get Chile to surrender, and the UK just wanted to end slavery in Argentina, so I let them do that. As we approached the end of the century, Brazil was going to be recognized as one of the great powers on Earth. With control over most of South America, we had everything we needed to create a massive economy. And unlike other nations, we're very stable and could attract many people to seek a new and better life in South America. And once we passed the right of assembly law, it finished a journal entry that gave us this very nice immigration modifier for the rest of the game. And we can attract so many people to Brazil by stacking immigration modifiers just like this. I still wasn't satisfied with the Europeans in Guyana, so I sought to push them all out. I started with the Dutch since they were the easiest, and I didn't expect the Italian protectors to be capable of much, and I was completely correct in that assessment. But looking at the other great powers at the time, it was clear that if I wanted to be the best, it would take a lot of building up. Still, I needed to keep securing Guyana, so I declared war on the British. Now, this war did not go well for me, but I at least got the achievement for democratizing Brazil during it. And fortunately enough though, as I kept losing, the front line split up, so I was able to sneak in behind the Brits and take just a little bit of land to make them want us peace out. And when I declared on the French, I also had the added bonus of being able to take the Panama Canal back from them. You see, in Vicky Wars, a good strategy to do late game, since the wars are so costly, if you can't win very fast, just take enough land to count for the war goal, then just park the bus and hope they can't push you back. And fortunately, the Brazilian bus was just too heavy for the French. South America now stood fully united under Brazil, and it was time to grow this economy with the full potential and power of laissez-faire capitalism and free trade. I cut taxes on everyone and queued up more construction sectors to have over 2,000 construction. And how could I afford all of that? Pretty easily, actually. A key way to grow with free trade is that you keep doing as many trade deals as possible with other nations, so you can keep spawning trade centers in your states, and each trade center gives 25% migration attraction, even if it's not profitable. But the ones that are profitable, they really give you money. But the effect of this modifier stacking has the migration map mode look something like this in Brazil. And as a result, we had so many different cultures throughout the country here. It wasn't enough though, because even with 1 billion GDP in 1917, I still wasn't even a top 3 power. Still, I just cracked 100 million population in 1919, and I had plenty of people to make this work, and I was going to make a roaring 20s for Brazil. As I went up to 3,000 construction in 1921, the results can easily be seen with the GDP graph. Also, the population had increased by 12 million in the past 2 years. I didn't even need to tax people much anymore to grow the economy. And with less taxes, the standard of living would go up even faster, creating more migration attraction. And clearly, by the ratio of loyalists to radicals, I was running Brazil very well. And, you know, since the UK never did it, and I thought it'd be good for my economy, I thought I might as well just grab Hong Kong as a treaty port from Qing, and Qing didn't even bother to pretend they could fight me and just caved in. By 1926, the migration had caused us to surpass India's population. It's pretty wild that in the span of 7 years, and we had a population growth of 50%, and there were no problems whatsoever because of it. And I could afford to go up to over 6,000 construction with the arc welding tech, and the investment pool was still just covering everything. I have 22 pages of stuff queued up for my construction queue, and it wouldn't even take half a year to build it. The only way to keep up is because the Anbeeld AI mod has an auto builder, and by 1928, I had finally built up my nation to be able to pass France on the GP list and become the greatest power on Earth. If y'all enjoyed this video, feel free to like the video and subscribe. This channel has been growing so much lately, and I'm really thankful for all the support and kind comments you guys have been giving me. Have a great rest of your day, and see you next week.